Hello everyone, and welcome to today's Beginning Roof Design. My name is Kayla and I will be presenting for you today. And then we also have Stephanie here with us. She's here on chat to answer any questions you might have during today's presentation. Now before we get started, let's take a look at our GoToMeeting control panel. By default, you should be on Use Mic and Speakers. We do have everyone muted today, so you don't need to worry about setting up a microphone, but if you are having difficulty hearing me, you can select this sound check option. It'll open up some troubleshooting options to try to fix that. If you still have problems hearing me, go ahead and switch over to our telephone radio option. It'll give you a number and an access code so that you can call in and listen in that way. Now, like I said, we do have Stephanie here with us, and she is here to answer any and all questions you might have today. So if you do have a question, go ahead and just type it into this box, hit enter, and you will see your question and Stephanie's reply below. We do have quite a few different products in our Home Designer line. Today, I will be using Home Designer Architectural. We'll be taking a look at our automatic roof tools, and everything that I do should apply to every single Home Designer version. So today, we're going to start by going over the program. We'll draw out walls and dimension them. We'll take a look at some of our roof definitions and what those terms mean. Then we're going to go through just our basic roof styles. So things like gambrel, shed, gable, hip, how we can easily switch between those using our automatic roof tools. Then we'll do a little bit more complicated roof styles, things like a A-frame and a clear story, a 1.5 story roof, and then we'll look at some dormer options. Finally, at the very end, we'll apply that all to a larger home so you can see how you can apply what you've learned to a home. And then at the end, we will have a little bit of time for question and answer. So let's jump right in. We're going to open up our Home Designer Architectural 2015. And I'm going to start today with just a blank plan that we'll start to draw with. So to begin, just like with every plan, we're going to start just drawing an exterior wall. So we'll come up to our architectural toolbar, which is this toolbar at the top, and we'll grab a straight exterior wall. Then I'm going to zoom in using my mouse with a scroll wheel, and I'm going to click and drag to draw out a wall. I'm going to do that 4 times until we complete our room. As soon as our room is created, you'll notice several things happened. Number 1, we have a total living area for our home. Number 2, we got some automatic dimensions because by default, Home Designer programs will have our automatic dimensions turned on. And then we also got these green lines. These are actually our roof planes. So we already have a roof that's been placed on this home. And if we take a look at this, just by coming up to our camera and selecting our perspective full overview, it opens up a 3D view of our home so we can see the hip roof that was automatically created for this home. Now I'm going to tile my views vertically. For the majority of today's demonstration, I will be in a tiled view so you can see our 3D while we update in 2D. I'm going to zoom in again by using my scroll wheel on my mouse. So here we have our hip roof. Before we do anything else, let's take a look at our build roof dialog. So I just came up, if you missed that, I came up to our roof tools and I selected build roof. We're going to spend a lot of time in here today because that's what our demonstration is today. So when we first open up our build roof, there's quite a few different options that are very important here. Number 1, you can see auto rebuild roofs is selected. Because that is checked by default, that was the reason why when we finished the 4 walls, it automatically put a roof on it. Having this selected also means that as I move my walls around or as I make changes, it's going to adjust the roof. Here we have our pitch, which is by default set at 8 and 12. Really quickly, I'm going to show you what that means if you're not sure what pitch is. To do that, we're going to get into an elevation view. This is a different type of camera view where I'm just going to drag out the front of my home so we can see an elevation of this home. And then I'm going to zoom into the corner here. And I'm going to grab this image that will show us what our roof pitch is going to look like. So here we have a 1 foot run And then each is showing us the rise. So in this case we have an 8 and 12 pitch, which means for every 12 inches we go over, we go 8 inches up. So it's describing this slope. So the smaller the number, the shallower the pitch. So this roof pitch symbol over here would be described as a 4 in 12 pitch. So now if we were to change this to, for instance, a 12 in 12, let's get back into our Build Roof dialog, change our pitch to 12, and then go back to our elevation, you can see our pitch has steepened. So we'll come back to our floor plan. Whenever I want to change something in 2D, I'm always going to want to make sure my floor plan is selected, this particular window, versus when I want to move around in 3D or make changes in this window, I want to make sure that that's selected. So I'll select my floor plan, and then I'm going to dimension my home simply by selecting a wall, and then I can put my cursor right over these dimensions and click, and it'll open up a dialog. This is very close to what I want. I want 30 feet. So I'm going to type that in with the foot marker, hit enter, and it'll adjust my dimensions. With this wall selected, I can also select a perpendicular dimension so that it'll adjust the distance from its parallel wall. So let's do 20 feet for that one. So you can see how easy it is to adjust all of our dimensions, and we'll work with that quite a bit today as well. So first off, let's get back into our roof dialog. We're going to change our pitch back to an 8 and 12. We have a couple of other specifications here. We can specify our eave overhang or our gable overhang, so how far off of the roof that roof plane is hanging. And then we can specify the materials for the roof. And then this final panel is for our roof styles. So this is going to take you, when you select this, to a step-by-step instruction on how to create the basic roof styles, which is what we're going to go through right now. So first off, let's take a look at our gable. So for our gable, what that looks like, we'll maximize that. A gable is going to have two roof planes that are bearing on opposite walls, with a gable wall on our opposite sides as well. So to do that, we're going to select a wall. Now the reason why we're selecting a wall is that Home Designer programs will work in our automatic tools to where we select the wall in order to adjust the roof plane that bears on it. And what I mean by bears on it is slopes downward to that wall. So in this case, by selecting this wall, we're selecting to change the roof plane that bears down on it. So we'll open this up, and when we open up the wall, you see we have a panel for roof. So we can come down to that roof panel, and we have a lot of different options in order to adjust how the roof looks above this wall. To change to a gable, very quickly we'll just select full gable wall and select OK, and it'll change it to a gable. Now if we want to change the other side, and we'll rotate around in 3D so we can see what we're changing, we'll select this wall. Now instead of actually opening up the wall in order to change, we do have a shortcut down in our Edit toolbar, and this toolbar, by the way, is specific to edit whatever object we have selected. So when I do not have an object selected, it disappears. When I select a wall, I have options in order to edit that wall. So I'll come down and I have a shortcut for Change to Gable Wall, so that with one click it becomes my gable again. Or as soon as it is a gable wall that we have selected, you'll notice my icon changed to Change to Hip Wall, so that with one click I can go right back to that hip. Now we're going to do an offset gable wall. What I mean by that is the type of wall, or the type of roof, excuse me, it's like a gable but with two different pitches on either side. So to do that, we're going to open up the wall that the roof plane is bearing on, because we're adjusting this particular roof plane's pitch. We'll open it up and we're going to change our pitch. Looks like I didn't apply that 8 and 12 earlier, but we're going to change it to a 3 and 12. So we'll select OK, and now let's rotate around to an angle where we can see that pretty well. We have a 3 and 12 meeting up with a 12 and 12. From here, it's very easy for us to transition into a shed roof. Be one single roof plane that extends all the way up to its opposite corner. So in this case, we want to get rid of this roof plane. We want this roof plane, and it might be easier for us to see in 3D, to extend all the way up to meet up with this wall. So we're going to select this wall, open it up. In our roof panel, we have an option for high shed gable wall. So with one click, just as we did for the full gable wall earlier, we can select OK. And now that single roof plane extends all the way up. We'll rotate around again so we can get a different angle of it. All right, so next, let's take a look at our gambrel option. It's going to be like our traditional barn style, where we have two roof planes above each wall. So let's start simply by opening up this wall on the left, and again come down to our roof panel. Now from here, we're going to change this pitch to 10 and 12, so a little bit steeper. And then you'll notice this checkbox for upper pitch. What this does is I'm telling the program that I want more than one pitch on this roof plane. So I essentially want two roof planes coming off of this roof. So we'll make our upper pitch 6 and 12, that's perfect. Now it's asking me, where do I want this second roof plane to start? How far in from my first roof plane do I want this second one to start? So we'll say 60 inches in from the baseline. Then select OK. Now baseline, so you know what that term is the distance from the outer edge of my wall. So the baseline is always going to be right along this edge. Might be easier for you to see when I have a pointer. So right at where the edge of my point is, at the edge of the exterior wall. So when we say 60 inches in from the baseline, that's measuring the distance from here out to where the second roof plane starts. So now we have a single roof plane coming off of this left wall that then extends upward because we still have this specified as a full high shed wall. So now we're going to select that high shed wall, open it up, and let's go through that same process. So we're going to review this. We'll remove the high shed. We don't want this to be a shed wall anymore. We're matching the exact settings that we had on the opposite wall. So in this case, 10 and 12, select an upper pitch, 6 and 12, and we want this upper pitch to start 60 inches in from the baseline. Then we'll select OK, and now we have an exact replica on the other side. So next, we're going to do basically that exact same thing, only the inverse. So we're going to do a gull wing, which is where we have a steeper pitch up top and a more shallow pitch towards the edge of the wall. So we'll open up our left wall again, come to the roof tab, and we're going to reverse these two pitches. So we'll start with our shallow pitch of 6 and 12, and then we'll move to a more steep pitch of 10 and 12. And we'll start this 60 inches again in from the baseline. Then select OK, and now we have an exact opposite of what we had on the other side. Now I can open up this wall and make those same changes, or I can just copy this wall. Again, I have this wall selected, so I'll come down to my Edit toolbar. There's an option to copy it, and then I'm automatically in paste mode so that I can just click to paste it on the other side. So now we have that exact same setting on this side. So now we're going to move into a half hip. So the half hip is essentially a gable that has a hip coming up on the top of the structure. So we'll start just by getting right back into our gable wall. It looks like we pasted a little extra here, so I'm just going to pull that back. There we go. So we'll begin just by opening up each of these walls, and we'll remove the upper pitch. It's alright if we're at a 6 and 12, that'll work perfectly. So we'll remove the other side as well. So we just have the lower pitch, just the one pitch coming off of the roof. And now we're back to our gable structure. So now let's take a look at opening up this gable wall. So we'll open it up. Now we can remove the gable wall, which would bring it back to a full hip style, or you can see we do have the option to select upper pitch. We don't have a pitch that's currently, or a roof plane that is currently bearing on this wall because it's a gable wall, so it extends all the way up. But we do have the option to select an upper pitch. So we'll leave that at 6 and 12. And then this number is actually the distance in from the edge of our roof plane. So we're going to be starting on both sides, coming in, how far in that hip needs to start. So let's start just by saying 40 inches in from the baseline. Select OK. So that's from here, the outer edge of our left roof plane, in, and from here, the outer edge of our right roof plane, in. So you can see it's a half hip that we've created coming off of our gable. If we wanted to make that a smaller half hip, let's open that back up, we can just increase the distance in from the baseline. So we could do something like 50 inches in. You can see it becomes smaller as this distance becomes larger. So now let's move into a slightly different plan. We've gone through the majority of our styles, and we'll just open up this build roof to look at the styles. We've gone through these, so if you need to review, feel free to just go into the program and look at these for step-by-step instructions. Now let's exit out of here, and we're not going to save it. We're just going to open up that plan blank again. So now we're going to work on something like a salt box, where we have a two-story structure where on one side the roof extends to the second floor, and on its opposite side it comes all the way down to meet up with the first floor wall. So to do that, we're going to start again just by drawing out our exterior walls. So we'll draw out the structure, and then we'll use our dimensioning tools to dimension this. Select this wall. I want it to be 40 feet, and we'll select this dimension by 30 feet. So now, if we get into a 3D view, we again have our hip home. Get into a 3D view, we again have our hip home that has been created. So we'll tile these two vertically, and we'll start just by creating our second floor. So right next to our roof tools, we have a build new floor. We will derive it from the first floor, and what that means is that we're going to be building the second floor walls right on top of our first floor walls. So you can see it created a replica of that first floor and raised our roof up. Now from here, we are on the second floor. You can see on our floor plan, we've come up to the second floor. I'm going to grab this back wall, and we're going to pull it back 10 feet. So let's make this only 20 feet from its opposite wall. So now we're at a place where, if I scroll around here, we have a hip down on our lower section as well, our first floor. So we'll come down to the first floor. We're going to start just by making these two walls gable walls, which is going to look like a shed wall at this point. We'll come up to the second floor, and we're going to change these two walls to gable walls as well. So now we have a gable wall and then a bit of a drop and another gable wall, which looks like a shed at this point. Now let's turn on our reference display so we can see what's happening on the floor below. These walls are our attic walls. So that's this section here that's above the first floor in between the roof. So that's what you're seeing on our second floor plan. Now from here, in order to get this roof plane to extend all the way up to meet up with this one, we're going to select this wall, which is again on our second floor, open it up, and in our roof panel, we have the ability to specify it as a knee wall. Now what that does, select OK, is it essentially, this is better to see in a glass house view. So right now we're in our standard render. I'm going to come down to a glass house so we can see through the walls and what's happening inside. So because we specified it as a knee wall, it just means that it's going to come up until it finds a roof plane. So we'll come down to our first floor, adjust the pitch, because again, this is the roof plane. This is the wall that the roof plane is bearing on. So we're going to come down to the first floor, open this wall up, and let's make it a steeper pitch. Let's do something more like 12 and 12. Select OK. So that made it a fairly steep pitch, and you'll notice my knee wall rose along with the roof in order to continue meeting up with the roof. So now we're going to move into a slightly different roof style. There's our salt box, so you can see a better view of that. But we're going to work on a clear story. So what this is two shed roofs that meet up and have room, and basically an attic wall for windows below. So we'll again exit out of this plan. We're not going to save it, but we'll come up and open up a blank plan again. So we'll start by drawing out our exterior walls. I want this time to have a 20-foot by 20-foot structure. So we'll quickly dimension this. And now we have our box 20 feet by 20 feet. And if we take a full overview, we have our hip roof automatically. Now for this one, we need to have two exterior walls in the center of this home that are facing each other. So we'll again draw out two more walls. And I'm going to zoom in to make sure that the siding is facing in. Then I'm going to select the wall, and I want these walls to be exactly 18 inches apart, which is, as you will recall, our default overhang that we have for our plan. So once they're 18 inches apart, I'm going to open up the room, the small room that's created in between these two. So we'll open that, and under structure, we're now in the room specification rather than the wall specification. So we have a structure panel, and we are going to remove the roof over this section. Then select OK. So now we have two hip walls, or two hip roofs next to each other. We need to change those to gable, so we'll do that just by selecting each of these walls. Now we have two gable walls right next to each other. But as you'll recall, we need to make these shed. So we'll open up the wall that we want to become a shed wall and specify high shed. So now we have a shed. We'll do the same for this wall. Open it up, and under roof, specify high shed. Select OK, and now we have two shed roofs that are facing each other. Now what we need to do is adjust our pitch so that we have a larger section in between these two. So to adjust this particular roof plane's pitch, we're going to open up the wall that it bears on, and under roof, we'll change our pitch to 4 and 12. So that gives us a pretty good distance between those, but I think I'm still going to open up the other roof plane, and we'll just change it to 9. So it's just a little bit higher. Okay, now I'm going to open up this room, and in the structure, I'm just going to remove the ceiling. And what that does, actually before I do that, let's get in a glass house so we can see what this is doing. So we'll do a glass house. So we have a ceiling that comes up and then stops. We're going to have windows here, so we want to make sure that we have a ceiling that extends all the way up to where the windows are going to be. So again, we'll select our room, open it up, and under structure, we're going to remove the ceiling over this room. Then select OK, and you can see that ceiling platform disappeared. So we now have a ceiling that extends all the way up and matches the pitch of our roof. From here, our roof itself is pretty well set. So we're going to come back into our Build Roof dialog, and we're simply going to deselect Auto Rebuild Roofs. What this does is guarantees that when I move walls around, it's not going to adjust how my roof looks. So any changes I make, the roof is going to stay exactly where it is right now. So I'll select OK, and now I can select this wall, which is fairly unnecessary for this plan at this point, and just delete it, which then deletes our space that we had going on right here. Now I want to take this wall, open it up, and we're just going to mark it as an invisible wall. Select OK, and now we have a nice living space with an area to see up to our window. So if we were to drop in a window up here, again, need to make sure my 3D view is magnified, we can drop in a window and that light is going to work like a skylight and extend into the room. Okay, so next, let's take a look at a different type of structure. We're going to move on to an A-frame. Our roof plane is extending all the way down to meet up with the bottom of our first floor. So we're again going to exit out of here. We won't save that. And we're going to open up a structure that already has a gable roof on it. So if we take a look at 3D, we've already created a structure and changed it to a gable wall. And that's the stage that we're at for this particular plan. So now, the first thing that we want to do is open up our Build Roof dialog. So we're going to change our pitch to 22 because in A-frame we're going to need a really, really steep pitch in order to have a lot of living space underneath there. And we're also going to reduce our overhang, which again is the distance from this outer edge of our roof plane into the baseline, which, if you remember, is on the outside edge of our exterior wall. So we're going to change that overhang distance down to 8 inches. Then we'll select OK. Now we have a huge structure that shoots up into the sky. Now we want to eliminate this space right here. So we're going to open up the room, and under our Structure tab, we're going to reduce our finished ceiling down to 0 inches. So we're again pulling this roof plane all the way down to meet up with our first floor. Then we'll select OK. So now we have an A-frame to where the roof is extending all the way down. Roof-wise, we are done. So if we were just focused on the exterior, this is a finished A-frame structure. However, if we get into an interior view of this home, which we'll do just by grabbing a full camera, you can see we don't actually have drywall on our walls. We need to create living space because this is actually the ceiling of our first floor. We reduced it down to 0 inches. So, and I'm going to pull this over here so we can have multiple views open all at the same time. What we need to do is turn off our automatic roofs. So we're going to deselect that. The roof itself is fine. Select OK. And now we're going to raise our ceiling height for our living space back up to default. So I'm opening up the room on our first floor, and we're just going to select default so it comes back to our 109-inch ceiling. And now, if you see in our full camera view, we have nice living space. But I also want to create a loft area. And if we were to come up to our second floor, which is actually our attic, we just have attic space. So, to create living space up on the second floor, we are again going to come up and select Build New Floor, because attic space in Home Designer programs is not intended to be living space. You should not be using that space to place any objects. It sees it as an attic only. So when we want living space in the attic, we're going to come up to Build New Floor, change to Make New Blank Plan. So instead of having the walls build exactly on top, we're just going to open up to a blank second floor. Select OK, and select OK. So now on our floor plan, we've come back up to our second floor. You can see by the number 2 that's displayed right here. And if we turn on our reference display, we can now see what's going on the floor below, which is what we're seeing right here. So we'll simply draw out exterior walls, and we'll draw along those attic walls as well. And then as soon as we've finished off that space, we now have a room that we can open up and work with. So we'll open up this room. Actually, before we do that, I'm actually going to divide it in two using a railing, because we're going to create a loft area where we have open space and then living space. So we'll draw that railing across, open up the bottom room that's created by that railing, and under room type, we're going to change it to an open below. What this does, when I select OK, you can see in my 2D, it gives us some living space up top and then a nice big ceiling so we can see it all at once. And then from here, it looks like we need to meet up with our walls or our ceiling just a little bit more. So I'm going to select this wall and simply nudge it over using my arrow key. So it's moving it 1 inch at a time with my left and right arrows. So now that finishes off our A-frame home. And if we come down to the overview, again, it's a little bit easier to see this by getting into a glass house. There's our loft area and our living area down on the first floor. All right, so next, let's exit out of here. We're going to do a 1.5 story. Take a look at what that's going to look like. Kind of similar to the A-frame structure where we have living space down beneath the roof. So we're going to go through a slightly different way of going about that. So we'll exit out of here and again open up our gable plan. So we again have a structure with a gable roof on top. If we take a full overview, you can see what that looks like. And we're immediately going to get right into a glass house. So here we have living space down beneath the roof, and then this is all attic space up here. So there's not actually any living space available. So before we do anything else, let's open up our Build Roof dialog, and we're going to change our pitch to 12 in 12. Then we'll select OK. So now we have a bit of a steeper pitch so that we can create some living space underneath there. Next, let's build a second floor. Oh, that's our roof options. Here we go. Build new floor. And we are going to derive it from the first floor. So we'll select OK, accept our defaults, and now we've built a second floor, except it's moved our roof up with it. So we could go through the exact same process we went through for the A-frame home, where we reduce our ceiling height down to 0 and then turn off automatic roofs. Or in our Build Roof dialog, we also have an option to ignore the top floor. So with one click, I can select OK. And now notice we do have a ceiling that's up here as well. We can also see it in 2D by this black dotted line that's showing us where our ceiling starts. So just by opening up and selecting that checkbox, we already have living space, but the roof is ignoring our second floor so that it comes to meet up with the first floor. Now let's drop in a couple of dormers. So we're up on our second floor. Under our roof options, we have the ability to drop in a dormer. So we'll simply click to place that dormer. Oh, and we need to be in an area where we can see that. And let's go ahead and choose our standard view so that we can see standard view of what that dormer looks like. So by default, it has dropped in a gable dormer with a window, and it's using the default window that we have set up for our plan. Now let's select this dormer, open it up, and we have quite a few options here in order to adjust what this dormer looks like. If we want to raise the dormer so that it's taller, we can come down to the wall panel, type in 80 inches, select OK. You can see the ceiling height for the dormer went up. We can use our edit handles, which look like boxes here on our plan, to adjust the size of the dormer as well. And if we drop in another, we can open that one up individually. And we also have an option to change the roof style type. So without having to go through any of the process that we go through for our roof, we can just change it to, for instance, let's do one we've done before, a hip. Select OK and it changes it to a hip. You can open it up again and change it to something more like a shed. Now we have a shed dormer here. Let's drop in one more, and this is something that I really like to be able to do. We have an eyebrow dormer. So it actually does the full curve of the roof for an eyebrow dormer. Alright, so next, let's exit out of this plan, and we're going to draw out another one. So we'll open up a blank plan once again. And this time we're going to do a prow roof. So what that looks like is a roof that extends further out from the house itself. So we're going to have a couple of steps involved in this one. we'll start by simply drawing out the shape. And for this particular plan, I'm not very concerned with the dimensions at this point. And then we're going to draw walls at an angle simply by clicking and dragging to draw them out at an angle. And I think I want this one to be that same. They're going to snap in 15-degree increments, so we can pretty quickly get a good angled wall there that meets up in the middle. So if we take a look at this in 3D so far, here we have just a hip structure placed onto our angled walls. Now from here, we want it to have the nice tall gable. So one of these walls we're going to change to a gable, which is going to do just kind of a basic gable over that wall. Now, to have the gable extend all the way up and over, we're going to select this angled wall, open it up, and in the roof panel, we'll change it to a high shed gable. So that creates our full gable going across our angled walls. Now, I want the gable to be further out than the walls themselves. So the roof is set exactly how I want it, but these walls are angled further out than I eventually will like. So since the roof is set, that means that we can come up to our Build Roof dialog and turn off our Auto Rebuild Roofs. Select OK, and now when I pull back these walls, so it's just a slightly angled roof, it keeps the prow the way that it was. And it looks like we have some sheathing here, so we'll just use our material eyedropper to paste that on so we continue that sealing. So by turning off that automatic rebuild roof, we were able to maintain the fuller angled prow roof. So next, we're going to exit out of here again, and let's just take a look at some different gable options. So we'll open up our gable plan. Here we have our full gable roof. So we've been changing to a gable simply by selecting the wall and coming down and either changing it in our edit toolbar or opening it up. But let's say you just want a gable that extends over a door. So let's drop in a door into this plan. We'll come up to our our architectural toolbar, grab a hinged door, and just drop it into our plan. With a door selected, we have a new option in our edit toolbar to place a gable over the door or the window, in this case the door, so that with one click it places a nice little gable over our door. Or if we wanted to remove it, it changes our icon so that we can remove that gable. Let's place two windows on either side of this, and let's say that we want to place a gable that extends all the way across all three of these. We can select the window, hold down our Control key in order to click and select all three of these items at once. Now with all three selected, we still have this option to do a gable over a door or window. So rather than doing three separate gables, it will create a large gable over this section. However, let's say we want to extend it even further out, but we don't want to move the windows to do so. We can zoom in on our plan here. So we're going to come up to our roof tools, and we have a gable roofline tool. What this does is I can click and drag parallel to the wall, release, and it will create a gable above that line. And if we select it here, you can see we can redimension it by using our edit handles, or we also have options down in our edit toolbar like center, so we can center it in this home so the gable is completely centered. Now there's one last way that we can add gables to just a small section. So we'll rotate around. This wall, we've been using walls that are just continuous sections. However, we do have a break wall tool. So I'll come up to my architectural toolbar, select that, and break this wall into several sections. So now you can see each one of these sections can be opened up and edited individually. So if you have different roof styles over a single section of wall, you can break it into multiple sections and edit them completely separate from one another. So you can see, just with a couple of clicks, I can add gables over those sections. Or you can even adjust the pitch over those sections. Okay, so now, finally, today, we're going to open up a plan that we have already basically finished aside from the roof. So we'll open up a pretty much finished plan. So here we have all the walls. Let's take a 3D overview of this plan. Now, as you can see, we don't have a roof on here. We're looking at basically just the ceiling. We'll again tile these views vertically, as always. Now from here, I'm going to take a look at what I want this roof to become. So let's just open up a picture. This is what I want the roof on top of the home to be. So we're going to have quite a few different gable sections. We're going to have some roof returns and some dormers. So to start off with, let's go ahead and just build our roof. We'll come up to our roof tools, select Build Roof. We are going to turn on our Auto Rebuild Roofs, and we'll leave our pitch at 7 in 12. Select OK, and it's going to place a hip roof all the way around this structure. So every wall, by default, has a hip roof above it. But slowly, we will just grab each of these walls and change them to gable walls. So we'll start with just a few of these. Grab this front over here and change it to a gable. I want to change my angle a little bit. Just rotate around. So there we have a gable. We'll select this little section over here, which needs to be a gable as well, and that will create that nested gable effect. And then we'll select this wall, change it to a gable, and we'll need to do the other section because it looks like we have a gable that's extending all the way back behind these smaller gables. So we'll select this exterior wall. I should probably zoom in so you can see this a little better. Select this section of wall and change it to a gable. Alright, now let's check our picture to see where we're at. We're getting pretty close, except it looks like this gable needs to extend all the way over the porch. So we can even select our porch walls, open them up, so railings can act in the exact same way as walls. So we can open up a railing and have the same roof options. In this case, we can change it to a gable as well. So now we have that gable that extends all the way across down to the porch. So we have a couple more gables we need to do. It looks like these need to be gables, and then on the garage we need a gable. So let's do that. We'll come back to here and we'll hold down our control key for this one. We'll grab this wall, hold down our control key, and select all three walls at once, and with one click, change all three of those to gables. Do the same thing for our garage. We'll select both the top and bottom wall of this garage and change them to gables. Alright, let's see where we're at. So we're pretty close. We do need, however, it looks like this gable extends all the way across to the other side of this structure. So we're going to need to change the other side to a gable as well. We'll select each of these walls in turn, and we'll continue changing to gable walls until we see this gable extend all the way across. We'll select that one, see where that puts us. Not quite, so let's finally select this one down here as well. Change it to a gable. There we go. So now that we have all four of these walls changed to gable, that gable extends all the way across evenly to the other side of the house. So now we're pretty close. We do need some automatic roof returns here though. We have a full roof return extending over the garage and over this front gable section. And then it looks like we have partial roof returns on these two walls. So we'll start with our full roof return. So we'll select this outer wall, open it up, and one thing we haven't worked with are our roof returns. So we can click that auto roof return and it gives us a few options. How far we want to extend it on either side, whether it's a gable, a hip, or a full, and in this case it's a full, which means it's going to extend across the entire wall, which is why this length is grayed out for us right now. And then whether we want the roof return to go straight out or whether we want it to slope down to match up with our 7 and 12 pitch. In this case, we want it to be a full roof return sloping. Select OK, and you can see that roof return. We'll do the same thing for the garage. Open it up, and roof, auto roof return, full sloping. Select OK, and with just a couple of clicks we have a full roof return extending across there. Now we need a couple of smaller ones in these two sections. So we'll open up this wall to begin with, and this time instead of doing a full, we're going to do a gable, because we have a gable wall that's extending up, and we're going to change the length to 46 inches. Select OK, and now we have a roof return extending out there. We'll do the same thing for this wall. Open it up, get down to our roof panel, and select gable roof type. This time we want a smaller length of 36 inches. And you can see, we'll maximize this, we have those two roof returns, and that's what we have going on here as well. So the final piece to the puzzle are our shed dormers. So we have two of them. We'll start with this dormer, and we'll come up to our second floor, which happens to be our attic floor. Each of these walls that you're seeing are attic walls. So that's these walls that are extending, basically sloping below a roof. They're automatically created when we build the roof. But we can turn on our reference display so we can see what's happening below on the first floor. So let's just drop in a dormer, come up to our roof tools, and click to place a dormer. Now by default, it's going to do our simple gable dormer. So we'll select that dormer, open it up, and immediately change it to a shed dormer. When we change to a shed dormer, it changes the pitch automatically to 3 in 12, which is a pretty low, shallow pitch. And we'll leave the overhang, then select OK and see what it comes up with. Alright, so let's take a look at what we have going on here. It looks like it starts fairly high up on our roof, and then the shed dormer extends not all the way up to the top. So here, we're starting at about where we need to be, but it's extending a little too far. So what that tells me is our pitch is too high. Let's lower that down to 2. Select OK there, and now we're back down to where we need to be. Okay, so now let's widen this because we have quite a wide shed dormer on our plan. So we'll change this to, I think 14 feet wide is about how wide that looks. And it's going to extend the window across. Now I just want to center this on the roof plane. So we'll select the dormer, and with that selected we can come down to our edit toolbar, select center object, and center it. You can see that line telling me where it's going to center, right along that roof plane. So now it's right in the center. Okay, so now let's grab this window. We can adjust the window just like any other window on our plan. So we're going to open it up, and the width, rather than 148 inches, let's do 36 inches. Okay, and then we're just going to copy this window a few times so we have 4 windows sitting up here like we have on our dormer here. So we'll copy 2 more times, and I'm selecting copy and then grabbing my move handle and simply clicking to pull the copy out. It's a nice, quick, and easy way to grab an exact copy of these windows and pull them across. So now we have 4 windows, and that looks pretty close to what we want for our shed dormer. So this looks to be the exact same dormer, just over on our garage. So all we need to do is come to our floor plan, and we're simply going to select the dormer, copy it, and paste it directly onto that garage. So if we come over to here, it even copied all of our windows for us. Then all I need to do is center it on that roof plane. So we'll just center that. And if we double click to expand our 3D view, we can take a look at our picture, and it looks like we have finished off our home. So you can see how easy it is for us to apply all that we've learned to a what looks like a fairly complex structure, but in fact only took us a couple minutes to replicate. So next, I just actually want to show you a few things on our website. So we're going to open up homedesignersoftware.com. So here is our website, again, homedesignersoftware.com. And under products, we have all of our different product options. Right below that, we have our product chooser. Now this is going to be really helpful to you if you're having trouble deciding which program is right for you. So if you could scroll down a little bit, we have a complete comparison of what each program is capable of. Again, everything that we've done today should apply to our Suite and Pro and Essentials version, even though we were working in Architectural. Now we do have a free trial download, and we have one of both our Professional and the Architectural version, so you're welcome to go and download that at any time. Under our User Center, we do have a number of training videos that you can watch that will guide you through various things within the software, and they tell you which version they apply to. Again, under our User Center, we have training webinars, so you can sign up for demonstrations like you're watching today. We have a samples gallery where you can download some sample plans, look at some sample images, so plans and renderings for design inspiration. And then we have catalog and content download, so you can go and download additional content for your program in addition to what comes with the software. Finally, we do have this Home Talk user forum where you can connect with other users, even with professionals, share ideas, or come up with inspiration for your plan. If we come to support, we also have this knowledge base. Now the knowledge base is extremely handy for being able to search for various articles. So we have hundreds of articles explaining step by step how to do various things within the software, and you can use the search bar at the top to type in something like A-frame, which we have right here, and it'll come up with an article showing you step by step how you can go about creating that A-frame structure. So again, Stephanie will be here for a while after the presentation has ended. Feel free to type in any questions. We do have a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you're welcome to purchase. If it doesn't work out, you can definitely return the product. We have upgrade discounts as well if you have a previous version and would like to upgrade to the 2015 version, which is what we are using today. And then, again, we have those online resources to help you out. If you need help choosing a product beyond what's on our website, please feel free to give us a call, send an email. We would be more than happy to help you out with that. Thank you so much for attending today's demonstration. If you have any other questions, go ahead and type them in. We'll be here for a while. Otherwise, have a wonderful day.